What's up, everyone? Another glorious day it is. I am your host, Ghost, and I'm back with another terrible video. Well, this one will be probably less terrible. Today, what I'm going to talk about is Memorial Day, because today is Memorial Day. Um, and, most people, I mean, we all know what Memorial Day is, but I'm sure a lot of people confuse it with Veterans Day and various other days that do to honor our military. Um, so I figured I'd talk about the history of Memorial Day and discuss my thoughts on it and everything. So without further ado, I guess let's get to it. Hope everyone's doing well. So, whoops. So Memorial Day. Let's see. So Memorial Day is, as everyone knows, a holiday, an American holiday, of course, which is observed the last Monday of May. And it honors those who died while serving in the military, the men and the women. Uh, and it was originally known as Decoration Day. And the way it started was in the Civil War era. At the end of the Civil War, um, is when really the first well, I guess at that time it was called Decoration Day. It was the first time they started honoring soldiers who died while serving the U.S. Um, and in 1971 was when it became officially a federal holiday. And there's various ways people observe Memorial Day. I'm sure generally it's family gatherings, like a barbecue or something like that. No, nothing wrong there. But some visit the graves, cemeteries of fallen soldiers, like Arlington and whatnot. Um, and maybe there's some parades people participate in. So the birthplace of Memorial Day and early observances. Uh, so like I said, during the Civil War, at the end of it of 1865, that had claimed more lives and then all the other conflicts in U.S. history. So the Revolutionary War. Let's see, what other wars were there before the Civil War? Were there? I think the other ones I think of are. Or sorry, all I think is yeah. So there's the 7 Years' War, American Revolution. See anything that's oh, and the Mexican American War. So yeah, those are all the general, probably the big ones that we think of when we think of you know a war. Uh, the main ones we think of in the history of America. I think those are generally the ones that everyone remembers. So, when the Civil War happened, it was the one that claimed the most lives, and which required the establishment of a national cemetery because of how many people were there, which obviously sucks. And then by the late 1860s, various towns and cities did their own tributes for the fallen soldiers and decorated their graves with flowers and prayers. Although it's really unclear where it originated, because obviously we were spread pretty thin back then. We didn't have email or the internet like we did now. So it's something like that. It's a very unclear of how it happened, but I guess there were records that showed that a group of enslaved people formerly did their one of their earliest commemorations a month after, well, less than a month after the Confederacy surrendered in 1865. And then in 1966, the federal government, I guess, declared New York the official birthplace of Memorial Day. Okay, maybe they just didn't want to give South Carolina their due. Who knows? So I guess the reason was Waterloo first celebrated the day on May 5th of 1866. So I guess that's why they chose it as the official birthplace, which is fine, no big deal. And I guess they hosted a community-wide event and closed up their businesses and decorated graves of soldiers, which was very nice. So it started off, like I said, as Decoration Day. In 1868, General John A. Logan, that led an organization of Northern Civil War veterans, so probably more like the Union Civil War veterans. He basically called for a day of remembrance later that month. And I guess what he said was the 30th of May of 68 is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers and otherwise decorated the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. So this is interesting. So the reason they chose this date was because it wasn't the anniversary of any particular battle. So that basically is, so it was an unimportant day that wouldn't be overshadowed by an important battle or would overshadow a battle, which makes sense. It makes everything fair, really. And it looks like on the first Decoration Day, General James Garfield, probably the president who later on became president. Let's click on James A. Garfield. Yeah, he was the 20th president. Oh, that's right. I know some of my history. Made a speech in Arlington National Cemetery, and if everyone that doesn't know, that's where a lot of the mass graves of fallen soldiers go. A lot of soldiers can choose to be buried there. And it holds so many from the Civil War, World War I, II, and the Vietnam, Korean. There's a lot of soldiers buried there. And there's a place called like the Tomb of Unknown Soldiers. I want to give a brief history on that. Let's see. This is a recording, but I'm doing it live. So, history. So the Tomb of Unknown Soldiers is a monumental grave of an unidentified military service member who died in wartime. Let's see. So yeah, I guess it's a movement to. There was a movement, to set aside special tombs for unknown soldiers, or that started in World War II, where a vast number of men died, and obviously, they weren't able to identify them all. And so Congress authorized the burial of an unknown soldier in March 4th of 1921. So, and there was a ceremony that took place on November 11th in Arlington Cemetery and the Memorial Amphitheater in Virginia, Arlington. The honoree was selected by an Army sergeant from among 4 unknowns who had been exhumed from 4 American cemeteries in France. The Tomb of Unknown Soldiers site later came to be called the Tomb of the Unknowns, as additional unidentified combatants from later wars to Korea, Vietnam, were interred in the shadow of the original sarcophagus. So, and I guess later on, DNA testing in the 1990s revealed that Vietnam unknown was in fact First Lieutenant Michael J. Balassi. And then after he became known, he was removed because he was no longer an unknown. So that's really interesting. But if you ever go to the Tomb of Unknown Soldiers, generally like a ceremony with the honor guard, the Army honor guard, and they do changing of the guard. And it's this big ceremony, and you got to be really quiet. Like the people, the soldiers there, they get kind of pissed off. Well, they don't get pissed off, but they rebuke you if you make any noises. I'm sure some people have seen those YouTube videos of like someone making noise, and then there's the one of the guards like shouts at him like, "Hey, please be quiet during the changing of the guards." Anyways, sorry, I got off on a tangent there, but I haven't been there yet. I do plan to go there at some point. That'd be really cool. Been there yet. So back to this. So in Arlington National Cemetery, General James Garfield, Dick, and 5,000 participants. Well, he made a speech while 5,000 participants decorated the graves of the 20,000 Civil War buried there. And so a lot of northern states did similar events commemorating, and they continued the tradition in various years. By 1890, all of the northern states pretty much like they made the Decoration Day the official state holiday. Southern states, because they were probably still grumpy about losing the war, did their separated honor the dead on separate days until World War II. So, like I said before, it was originally to honor those lost while fighting in the Civil War, but after several wars came back, starting with World War I, they continued to honor military personnel that died in all the wars. So, Vietnam, Korea, and of course the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay. So it was for decades since the selection. It was observed on May 30th, but in '68, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act that established Memorial Day as the last Monday in May in order to create a 3-day holiday for federal employees. That didn't go into effect till '71. And then that same law also declared Memorial Day as a federal holiday. So that's why there's a lot of holidays that even if it's not exactly on the day, is always observed on a Monday. That's why. So there's the traditions and rituals for honoring Memorial Day, besides barbecues and stuff like that, are generally that incorporated military personnel and veterans organizations and did parades. Let's see. A lot of Americans observe Memorial Day by visiting cemeteries and memorials. I guess there's this tradition of wearing a red poppy in remembrance of those fallen in war. So now, obviously, as time goes on, people generally will, people understand what it is, but they don't generally observe it as they used to. So they're generally gonna, a lot of people do, weekend trips, they throw parties, barbecues, and all that stuff because it's unofficially the beginning of summer, which makes sense because last Monday after that's the next Monday is June. June's generally in summertime, so there's always a big bash. A lot of people go and party it up. So, which it makes sense. Anyways, so that's it. Like, oh, stupid. I don't understand technology. But anyways, that's just a brief history of Memorial Day. It's nothing too like obviously it's an important holiday in my opinion, but it's nothing like that's that I I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. It's a very, in my opinion, it's a very important holiday because what we're remembering are individuals that's died to protect the freedoms that we have now. And yes, so a lot of those freedoms have eroded today, but their sacrifice is not valid. It's nonetheless important as it was when they did it. So, it's one of the most important holidays. It's probably far more important than a lot of holidays, um, especially with the problem with homeless veterans and veterans that commit suicide and all that. It's Yeah, I think it's a very important holiday, and I hope that even though I included everyone, we celebrate Memorial Day by spending time with family and partying it up and enjoying ourselves. Nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying yourselves on a holiday where you get a 3-day weekend, generally. But I hope everyone takes some time and just remember why we celebrate it. You don't have to take the whole day and be, depressed about it or anything, but just, take a moment or two. Like, hey, this is, you know, the reason we're doing this is because there are individuals that sacrifice the most. A lot of men lost their lives in the Civil War. Uh, Far more lost their lives in World War One, World War Two, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Iraq, Afghanistan, and regardless of how you feel about how the government is and how they handle themselves and all that, you should. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but it's just because you disagree with how the government handles things doesn't mean that you shouldn't honor those that but made the ultimate sacrifice. And I think that's what we really need to remember during this day. Again, absolutely enjoy yourself. Enjoy the 3-day weekend. Nothing wrong with that. Just take a moment maybe and just remember why we have the country we have. This is a very short video. I don't want to take up many time, and I don't want to. I don't want to. What's the word? I don't want to just I want just a solo video on Memorial Day is all. I don't want to add any bunch of other stuff onto it. We'll get to that tomorrow. But I just hope everyone takes a moment and just remembers. But this is Ghost. Please like and subscribe to the video if you liked it. Make sure to follow me on Rumble and follow me on my Twitter at official WGhost. Very complicated, I know. Terrible person, terrible handle, but it's okay. But thank you, and I hope everyone enjoys their holiday. Bye. And one more thing is, oh man, I had another thing, and it made me. I just made lose my thought. Is all. But if you ever have a chance, I think everyone should try and make their way to the Arlington Cemetery, where a lot of fallen soldiers are. Obviously not on a Memorial Day, but just in general. Sorry, that that thought just came out to me the last one. But again, this is Ghost, and I hope everyone has a good holiday and enjoys themselves.